Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moats.
And I'm Kaylee Hartung. Here are the top 5 things to know this Wednesday. Number 1, President Trump's impeachment trial resumes this afternoon after the first day of debate wrapped up before 2 o'clock this morning.
Chief Justice John Roberts admonished both sides over their language after the impeachment managers and the president's lawyers accused each other of lying. Republicans defeated nearly a dozen amendments to the rules, mostly aimed at seeking new witnesses and testimony. Number 2, President Trump watched portions of the impeachment proceedings from Davos, Switzerland, where he's attending the World Economic Forum.
At one point, the president tweeted in all caps, "Read the transcripts," and he later responded to questions about the trial.
That whole thing is a hoax. It goes nowhere because nothing happened. The only thing we've done is a great job, so I'm sure it's going to work out fine.
The White House says the president is being constantly updated.
On to number 3. The first case of coronavirus has been confirmed in the U.S. A man from Washington state got sick after returning from China, where the outbreak began.
More than 440 people have gotten sick because of the new coronavirus. Most of them in China. At least 9 have died. The CDC has activated its Emergency Operations Center, and the World Health Organization is holding an emergency meeting. We head to California for number 4, where a 3.6 magnitude earthquake has jolted the Los Angeles area.
The quake hit just after 11:40 p.m. local time and was centered near the city of San Fernando. There are no reports of any significant damage. And finally, number 5, Coco Gauff has pulled off another win at the Australian Open.
The 15-year-old was 2 points away from being eliminated, but she rallied back to win, setting up a third-round match tomorrow against defending champ Naomi Osaka. It's Morning American. It's great to have Kaylee Hartung back in the building, in the seat, and you came on a busy day.
I did. So much news to get through today, and we know it's all starting in Washington.
Yes, that big story on Capitol Hill, fireworks on the first full day of President Trump's impeachment trial. A marathon debate over the rules stretched into the wee hours of the morning. A nasty clash erupted after midnight between President Trump's legal team and the Democrats prosecuting the case, as Republicans defeated nearly a dozen amendments to the rules.
The exchange prompted Chief Justice John Roberts to admonish both sides about their language. ABC's Elizabeth Herr has been watching this all night. Elizabeth, good morning.
Kaylee and Kenneth, good morning to you. And yes, it was a long day and night, and many Senate members left the building exhausted. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says day one was a good day, a victory for Republicans.
The impeachment trial of President Trump resuming today with opening statements. This following a marathon session yesterday that stretched well past midnight. With the ground rules approved and some senators even seen rushing out of the building. The trial kicked off with a fierce debate over the rules.
But President Trump does not want you to hear from Ambassador Bolton. And the reason has nothing to do with executive privilege or this other nonsense.
The only one who should be embarrassed, Mr. Nadler, is you.
This clash even prompting a rare moment. Chief Justice John Roberts admonishing both sides.
I think it is appropriate at this point for me to admonish both the House managers and the President's counsel in equal terms to remember that they are addressing the world's greatest deliberative body.
Democrats spent most of the day arguing without additional witnesses or documents. The trial amounts to a cover-up. But President Trump's lawyers fired back, alleging House Democrats rushed to impeach without fighting for witnesses in court. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell did make some changes to his proposed rules, now giving 3 days of opening statements and allowing the existing evidence. But Democrats kept fighting.
The House calls John Bolton. The House calls Mick Mulvaney. The question is, will you let us?
In all, Democrats offered 11 amendments to the rules, but in the end, all were voted down almost entirely along party lines. Kenneth and Kaylee?
All right, Elizabeth there on Capitol Hill. Thank you.
And as the nation watches history unfold this week on Capitol Hill, all 100 U.S. senators are finding themselves in a very unique situation.
The rules and regulations from the last impeachment trial may be the same, but in 2020, those senators are under a microscope like they've never experienced before. The impeachment trial is underway, and just like any legal proceeding, there's the prosecution and the defense. The judge is Supreme Court Justice John Roberts. The jurors, all 100 U.S. senators. The rules are simple. No electronics. They must be left in shelves outside. Senators must sit at their desk. They can't talk to neighbors. They can't read any materials not related to the proceedings. So how's that going? At least 7 senators were spotted Tuesday wearing Apple Watches. That's a no-no. Many senators were seen taking notes. Some, like Tim Scott and Ben Sasse, have been seen passing notes and chatting. Another no-no. Rand Paul played a crossword puzzle. A big no-no. As aides hand-deliver notes and Senate pages fill up water glasses, some famous faces are watching from the gallery, like actress Alyssa Milano tweeting this pic of her Senate pass. But as day turned into night and night into late night,
Because it's midnight.
people got punchy. Impeachment manager Congressman Hakeem Jeffries quoted the late and notorious B.I.G.
That is why we are here, Mr. Sekulow. And if you don't know, now you know.
Now you know.
Others promised to keep it short.
Mr. Chief Justice, I will be brief.
Senators, I'll be brief.
And the White House counsel wondered if it would ever end.
We came hoping to have a trial.
And luckily for anyone who gets hangry, there are snacks. The Senate Candy Desk, a tradition dating back to 1965. And right now, it's stocked with Hershey bars, Milky Ways, and 3 Musketeers. ABC News will bring you live coverage of the impeachment proceedings when they resume today around 1 p.m. Eastern. You can catch that. Also, our coverage streaming on ABC News Live.
And coming up, the debate over cutting books in half, cutting the internet in half as well.
But first, Greta Thunberg takes on the World Economic Forum and President Trump over climate change. After this.
Welcome back. President Trump addressed the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland yesterday. But now Swedish teen climate activist Greta Thunberg is making headlines for her speech there and her ongoing feud with the president. Let's go across the pond to our foreign correspondent, Julia McFarlane, in the London Bureau for more. Good morning, Julia.
Morning, guys. Yes, so the 17-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg was one of the main highlights at the World Economic Forum in Davos. She hit back after President Trump's speech, where he railed against the perennial prophets of doom who predict the apocalypse. Now, he didn't name Thunberg specifically, but it was pretty clear who he had in his sights when he was speaking those words. Now, Thunberg, of course, she shot to fame last year when she staged regular strikes outside her school and then became the global face of the environmentalist movement. She then, of course, beat President Donald Trump to be the 2019 Time Magazine Person of the Year. Now, her speech when she hit back against the president, she said that the facts are clear, but they're still too uncomfortable for you to address. You just leave it because you think it's too depressing and people will give up, but they are not giving up, you're giving up. Now, she also did not name President Trump, but it was pretty clear she was speaking after his speech, and it was clear that she was rebutting what he had to say. Let's take a closer listen to what she said in her speech.
We're not telling you to offset your emissions by just paying someone else to plant trees in places like Africa, while at the same time forests like the Amazon are being slaughtered at an infinitely higher rate. Planting trees is good, of course, but it's nowhere near enough of what is needed, and it cannot replace real mitigation and rewilding nature.
That mitigation she mentions, of course, is referring to efforts to drastically cut out emissions. Now, just a reminder, Kaylee and Kenneth, that the Earth finished its hottest decade on record, with the last 5 years as the hottest 5 years on record. That's according to US figures and science agencies. Now, I just want to take you over to Lebanon, another story that we are watching now. After months of anti-government protests, Lebanon has formed a new government. Now, that will hopefully end the months of deadlock and a stagnating economic crisis, which has brought many people out onto the streets. We've just seen a particularly violent weekend. Around 460 people were injured in very violent anti-government protests, where protesters clashed against riot police and the internal security forces. Tear gas from security forces and rocks and stones from protesters back at them. Now, Prime Minister Saad Hariri, he resigned last October when those protests first started gathering pace. The Hezbollah political wing, of course, they make up a large part of the Lebanese government. Them and their allies in government could not agree to a cabinet last year, but they chose a university professor to succeed Saad Hariri as prime minister. That new prime minister, he's described this new government announced today as a rescue team. Now, those talks to try and agree on a cabinet really became urgent when the protests took a very, very downward turn recently with that rise in violence. Now, just to give you some background, those protests in Lebanon, there is this really, really deepening economic crisis. The Lebanese currency is losing value. There is a huge crisis ever since and before the million Syrian refugees came into Lebanon. There has been real issues with the public infrastructure there, already at breaking point, which was stretched before those refugees coming into the country.
Thank you, Julia, there across the pond. All right, it's Morning America, and we've been up all night keeping an eye on the latest news. Here are some of the stories we've been tracking overnight on World News Now and America This Morning.
Millions of Toyotas are being recalled because their airbags may not inflate in a crash. The safety move affects nearly 3 million Corollas, Matrixes, Avalons, and Avalon hybrids in the U.S. The defect is connected to at least one death. Model years range from 2011 through last year. Owners of the affected vehicles will be notified by mid-March.
So a big college basketball rivalry ended in a big and ugly, nasty fight on the court.
Check out the last seconds of the Kansas game. The Wildcats trying to get off one last shot, down by 22 points, and then the Jayhawks' Silvio De Sosa blocks it. He stands over K-State's DeJuan Gordon, and that's when the bench is empty.
Whoa.
The punches get thrown.
Oh.
That's a chair in the air. He didn't hit anybody with it, but that chair raised in a way that
does not look good.
No, that melee, it spilled into the crowd as the punches kept flying.
This right here, and again, this is why I'm glad we have our resident sports analyst here at ABC News here this morning, Kaylee Hartung, because you do not want to see that.
No, and as John Chiambi, who was calling the game for ESPN, said on the broadcast, this is not acceptable. There's just no point to it. We've heard from both universities, Kansas's Bill Self saying, I know we were in the wrong. He called this an embarrassment. He says that there will be consequences handed down to his team after they have time to review it. Both universities and their conference will be reviewing what happened here, but there's just no place.
So suspensions will be handed out. Bench players, they were thrown out of the game. What a mess there.
And we turn now to Hillary Clinton taking aim at Bernie Sanders with only 12 days to go until the Iowa caucuses.
Clinton was quoted saying nobody likes Sanders, and now there's new fallout with one presidential candidate urging Clinton to, quote, grow up. This morning, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is responding to the uproar after offering what she calls her authentic, unvarnished views.
You want to make a difference, you want to have an impact, well then, you got to get in the arena.
In a documentary for Hulu, Clinton takes aim at her former rival Bernie Sanders, saying he was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He got nothing done. And during a new interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Clinton doubled down, saying she stands by that statement. Sanders was asked about the comment while in Washington for the impeachment trial.
On a good day, my wife likes me, so let's clear the air on that one. Secretary Clinton is entitled to her point of view. My job today is to focus on the impeachment trial.
Why do you think the Secretary is still talking about 2016?
That is a good question. Ask him.
The controversy comes days after Sanders faced off with Senator Elizabeth Warren on the debate stage over her claim that Sanders told her a woman can't win the White House in 2020.
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
What?
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
This morning, the website Politico reports Sanders' staff is being asked to stay quiet about Clinton's comments as his supporters come out in full force online, slamming Clinton with the hashtag #ILikeBernie. And when asked if she will support Sanders if he becomes the nominee, Clinton said, I'm not going to go there yet. But last night, Clinton appeared to back down, tweeting, the #1 priority for our country and world is retiring Trump. And as I always have, I will do whatever I can to support our nominee. Congresswoman and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard addressed the controversy last night, urging Hillary Clinton to, quote, grow up, saying this isn't high school.
Don't expect to see the Boeing 737 MAX jets back in service anytime soon. Boeing now says it doesn't expect government approval for a return before at least the middle of the year. The planes are grounded after 2 deadly crashes. The news caused Boeing stock to fall so much that it dragged the entire Dow down the most in more than a year. And the city of Los Angeles is not letting baseball's sign-stealing scandal go away quietly.
LA's city council has passed a resolution calling on Major League Baseball to strip the Houston Astros and Boston Red Sox of their titles in 2017 and 2018. The Dodgers, of course, were on the losing end in both World Series. The resolution also calls for the club to be awarded both championships. The Dodgers haven't won the World Series since 1988. And in other baseball-related news, a Yankee, with 5 World Series rings, is among the new members of baseball's Hall of Fame. Slow clap from Jack back there.
Derek Jeter was a near-unanimous selection for Cooperstown, missing out by just 1 vote. The former Yankee captain was a 14-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year in 1996, and World Series MVP in 2000. And joining Jeter is former outfielder Larry Walker. He's the 1997 National League MVP and winner of 3 batting titles. He's also the second Canadian to reach baseball's Hall of Fame.
Turning to the weather now, people in South Florida are bracing this morning for wind chills below freezing for the first time in years. And that means the National Weather Service is warning about falling iguanas. They're cold-blooded, and when it gets this cold, they slow down to a stop and often fall out of trees. Let's hope we all fare much better than those iguanas. 4 days after a record blizzard, this was the line to get groceries in Newfoundland, Canada. The stores finally opened again Tuesday, but only for 8 hours. One store limited shoppers to 2 loaves of bread, and after 3 feet of snow, some streets still aren't clear.
And a search is underway for an American woman who vanished while vacationing in Belize. Allison McKenzie and her boyfriend were on an overnight excursion with a tour group, and he says she was gone when he woke up Saturday morning. Police say the 43-year-old mother of 2 from Arizona was seen drinking the night before she went missing, but her family says it's not like her to get drunk. Investigators say they're not ruling anything out.
A man in Southern California faces murder charges after a hit-and-run crash. Police say 6 teenagers were pranking neighbors by ringing their doorbell and running away. The teens took off in a Toyota Prius after one neighbor started chasing them in his car.
When he came out and got in his car to chase after them, then they fled for their lives, basically.
The suspect is accused of running the teen's car off the road, causing it to crash into a tree. 3 of the teens were killed, all of them 16 years old. Witnesses followed the suspect after he fled the scene. He's now held without bail. A frightening video from Houston. 8 masked robbers shot their way into a restaurant. Workers inside tried to hide. The suspects found them, then stole their cash, jewelry, and cell phones. They also pistol whipped one worker before getting away. No arrests have been made. Police in Hollywood, Florida want to question former NFL receiver Antonio Brown.
That's after Brown and his trainer allegedly beat the driver of a moving truck outside Brown's residence. Authorities were unable to contact Brown for questioning Tuesday, but his trainer was arrested and charged with burglary and battery. Police hope to interview Brown today.
Developing story overnight, a shooting at a mall on the Las Vegas Strip. 3 people were wounded at the fashion show mall. Police say someone fired into a crowd after a group of young people started fighting. The suspect was still on the loose overnight. Now to music's biggest night, the Grammys, and new allegations raising the question, are the awards rigged?
The former CEO of the Recording Academy has come forward with some bombshell claims.
And he should have given his award to Beyonce.
The Grammys are no stranger to controversy.
And at this point, we tired of it.
Even artists themselves are sometimes shocked by the outcome.
But I can't possibly accept this award. The Lemonade album was just so monumental.
But this morning, a bombshell lawsuit is claiming that those stunning losses
10 times out of 9, I know you're lying.
Are due to an unfair system.
So I'm trying to be fair.
According to former Recording Academy CEO and President Deborah Dugan, music's biggest night is ripe with corruption.
Welcome to the 61st Annual Grammy Award.
The ousted exec outlining the alleged manipulation in a suit against the Academy, claiming nominations are rigged by members of the board and the secret committees that choose artists based on pre-existing personal or business relationships.
And the Grammy goes to...
Among those allegedly cheated out of well-earned nods, Ariana Grande and Ed Sheeran.
Don't think I fit in at this party.
Dugan claims the pop stars both had the votes to secure a nomination for the 2019 Song of the Year award, but were bumped by the committee over a, quote, outrageous conflict of interest. This was the same year that Grande pulled out of the show due to a disagreement with organizers. The allegations come amidst a brutal legal battle between Dugan and the Recording Academy.
There was no question she was going to make big changes there.
Dugan served as head of the organization for just 5 months before she was driven out by accusations of misconduct, allegedly creating a toxic and intolerable work environment and engaging in abusive and bullying conduct. But in her lawsuit, Dugan says she was the victim of sexual harassment and was put on leave after she complained. In a statement, the Academy says it's already launched an independent investigation into Dugan's allegations.
Okay, how about this? People like to still have a book in their hands to read it, but apparently there's a man who says when you're short on space, he's got an idea when it comes to creating more space for all of his books. He cuts them in half. He's a book murderer, and it's throwing Twitter all into
a frenzy.
Yes, it is. So this author and editor, Alice Christofi, he outed himself as a book murderer on Twitter. He says he cuts it right down the spine, puts it right on the shelf. It creates more room. He'll take the other half and go out, and on the bus, train, whatever, read that one half and then to the next. And that is our question of the day. Is cutting your books in half a genius life hack, or does it go against everything your school librarian taught you?
Tell us what you think in the comments or tweet us live at ABC News Live.
What would you do? You would not cut a book.
I would not cut a book. I would sooner carry a Kindle. And
oh, that's a great idea.
Reading on any electronic device.
I thought you were going to say, I hate reading.
No, I rather enjoy reading. But yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right, does it?
Well, I also like to keep books. I mean, they are
that's true.
Decor.
Stop
in my very
stop
small
mutilating
apartment.
the books.
What would you? Yeah, you're not cutting books.
Oh yeah, I'm just not reading, so it's okay.
There's that option too, folks.
Coming up, another long day ahead in the impeachment trial.
We'll tell you what's to come on this Wednesday, January 22nd, after this.
Finally from us on this Wednesday morning, here's what to watch out for today. The impeachment trial of President Trump continues this afternoon after a marathon session that went into the early morning hours. The Senate will debate any pre-trial motions that could include a motion to dismiss from the president's legal team. And once the motions are voted on, the House managers and Trump's lawyers will begin their opening arguments.
Meanwhile, President Trump returns to Washington today after addressing the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And opening statements are expected today in the sexual assault trial of Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. The jury includes 7 men and 5 women. An appeals court rejected Weinstein's request to move the trial out of New York City. 6 women are expected to testify that he assaulted them. Weinstein's lawyers are planning to reveal what they describe as dozens of loving emails sent by the accusers to Weinstein after he allegedly assaulted them.
All right, it's going to be a busy day in Washington on Capitol Hill, so make sure you stick with ABC News Live for all the impeachment trial coverage. It's been great to have Kaylee Hartung, and guess what? You're going to help us close out the week.
I sure am. Can't wait.
All right, have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow.